In spiritual consciousness, the everyday drives are gone. You don't need to excel. You don't need to do anything, and you're not interested. And the everyday environment keeps moving away from you. You're always in a pristine state. And to the degree you have responsibilities, like my teacher here, that you simply have to be places, although he has the equal spirituality, then somehow he's found a way to fight for his ground and make his life work. And each of my friends here live in that same manner and have the same spirituality. For me, my mission has always been one thought, one idea, one need, and that's to end all of the pain in the whole world for everyone. And today we're going to discuss how that will come about. It absolutely will come about shortly. And it's simply through understanding and wisdom. In Tibet, they've always had these deconditioning exercises where you don't believe in your own thoughts or ideas. And this is not a weakness or a silliness in the same way that being humble. In the scripture it said that the meek shall inherit the earth. Meekness is not being weak. When you're meek, when you're humble, you become great. You expand. You exceed all expectations in this world because you don't care to exceed, to excel, to succeed. You become one with God. You're very, very humble. It's a beautiful feeling. You become very big. You give nothing up in humility. My teacher's the most humble person I know, and yet he's a world champion at what he does, and all my friends here are the same. And it adds to your manhood, to your integrity, to your decency, your kindness. So getting right to the point of my particular brand of spirituality, which is everyone's, once you take a step into this deep dive, it's like those divers that can dive 300 feet in one breath. You take one breath and you go down, take you 8 minutes and come up, hopefully. Some don't. Breathing is a very complicated issue. And with spirituality, when you train yourself to not believe anything you think or you feel, and you have states of ecstasy in meditation. Breathing exercises will give you that. And when you get there and stay there, as I've stayed there since I was born, you know that none of this need be. The world truly is, as in the Eastern religions stated, an illusion. And that's the truth. I have so many friends now that are love couples or married, or my own experiences, that you're touched by God. You're in an atmosphere, for me, it's infinity. This is heaven. And the message of today will be, we're not going to leave this. We're not going to go to heaven at the end of our life. This is heaven when you're spiritually conscious. And we're going to have the other guy leave the room. And that's the mission, and that's what we'll discuss today. There's no reason to fear, to need, to want when you live in this state. And you have to go there on your own. You have to put all the literature of it away, you have to put all of the sacred objects away, and you have to put your own consciousness away. And from that you can look at the devil in the eye. The world is a conscious being. And it's nothing. It is the ultimate sideshow trick. It isn't really here. And when enough of us know this together, it's like the idea of America came, it was like in 1608, and pretty far away from London. There were several towns where a lot of preachers, religious leaders got together, and they formed they stepped aside from the church. And if you read about that time, God's secretaries, they were hanging each other, the people putting together the greatest work of art in my life, which was the St. James Bible, because they capture the beauteous sense of divinity throughout the writing, and yet they were all involved in the church in some way, and it was a very, very scary time to be alive, to not be drawn and quartered, if you can imagine that. So a number of people, hundreds of people got together, and they formed a spiritual community. And they would each individually stand up and preach and so forth and so on. So it was very, very spiritual. And when the church came down on that group, they turned themselves into what became the Pilgrims that landed in America in 1620. And that derived from that, from the oppression they felt from the Church of England at that point. But they gathered together with a sense of divine providence, which is what we're talking about today. God does not want this. I will not have this. You don't need this. In other words, the world be damned. You don't have to get all excited about it or angry, but this talk will give you the wisdom, the understanding, and more than that, the tools, which are spiritual, to comprehend that you're not going to take it anymore. You're going to find the words, the thoughts, the divine impressions to ask them to leave their pew in the church. They're degrading everything that's sacred. You understand? You have the power. There's nothing wrong with you. You don't need anything from this world. He will watch you. You're back. You'll have what you need, what's right. And you'll work at it all day, but it will be provided. Everything. It's a lot of wisdom. And you won't take a stand in any of the everyday battles, the socio-political concerns, whatever. Familiar, your family, you'll know how to be there 1,000% for everyone without being involved. It takes a lot of diligence, a lot of hard work and thought, a lot of reading, studying. And all you have to do to take away today is to know that it will be. You have the power. It's ordained from on high. You'll do all of your own thinking about this. It will come to you around the clock directly from heaven, which is here. It's here. It's now. You don't need to go anywhere to learn anything. Just feel this presence from God. This presence from God is your soul. God is an infinite kindness and a decency and a warmth. God has a loving nature. You are decent and warm and loving. You are God's presence. You are God's singular presence. What's being said that everything is an illusion. Feel that. Appreciate that. And God, or what I call the teachers, you'll call them angels, and it could be someone's mom. It could be John the Baptist or Moses. It's battlefield earth from here on in. We win. Before now, any spiritual person would have 500,000 battles. And they'd win 600,000 battles. You know what I'm talking about in your mind. over a lifetime. It's very complicated being here. Being a human being is impossible because it's unnecessary. I've never thought of dying or being married or anything because I know I won't die. I know I can't die. No one's ever died. So you're going to transition in your thought of what you are, of your nature, of your beingness, to something quite spiritual. You'll feel the presence of God every moment, every day, and you'll be taught, you'll be reminded, because here doing this means that we were born to do this, that we knew this before the world was. Because there is no time in the spirit. The world is an illusion. We could say it's very dark, it's evil, because it is. Excuse me. But once you step aside from it, it isn't. Getting back to the very beginning of this talk, I don't want anything, I don't care about anything, I'm not part of anything. My teacher, Pedro, here has given me the ability to come back into the world and communicate. And that's all I needed, because I've not been here. If you've ever been in my home, my living room, there's no one there, not even me. Understand? When you're in those conditions and time just passes and there's beauty and you feel the presence of this or that or the other, it's quite normal for a spiritual person to not want to excel at anything, to just be. And up to this moment, all spiritual beings are martyrs. The greatest people in the world have horrible love lives, family problems, work issues. We all do. And that's because we're not meant to relate in this way like we are our body. That's the problem with every love relationship, even families growing up. We're not separate. And that's the first thing you discard in spiritual consciousness. Any sense of separation. We're not apart from one another. We live in an ocean of divine presence. We are that ocean, and it simply requires not believing anything. You can start with all the basics we've discussed in these classes of breathing through your nose, exercises, feeling your diaphragm expanding and retracting, just being conscious of what takes you out of the thinking mind. And there are all these basic meditations which all work. But the goal of meditation is to not be here in the physical world. There is no physical world. There are no problems, no issues. From this day on, you'll be disappearing more and more into this lighted atmosphere. You'll feel lighter, kinder, more apart from everything, but that's not a loss, that's a gain. You'll feel wrapped into this rapturous, ecstatic atmosphere, lighter than air. It's quite beautiful. And you run into people from your life that are quite nice as well. Excuse me. You'll have friendships and loves from before that will surround you. And you realize you did nothing wrong. The world is a temptation that makes us all wrong. In our relationships, our habits, things get very confused. It's set up that way. As long as you think you're separate from someone else, there's the problem. I've never felt separate from anyone. And then when I run into people like my teacher who are spiritual, it's quite rewarding. You're not going to hurt one another. And when you step aside from the world in consciousness, you'll find your own. God still seeks his own. And the dark force will be on you like gangbusters. And you will enjoy it once you know it has no power. My teachers reminded me that I don't have to be concerned about the things of the world because I'm so not here that I forgot that I have to deliver the message at some point, which is what I'm doing now. So I need a little extra push to take me out of my shell, which isn't a shell, it was just having gone so far into the light, there's no Robert left. And in truth, there never was a Robert, and there won't be a Robert in the future. There's only this beauteous presence called God, called you. It is you. Before the world was, before anything that is seemed to be. In other words, there's no separation. The world does not exist. You were before this. You go back into the distant past of the earth 14 billion years ago, and they say that there was no time, and you go back to the beginning of time. Well, what's before that? Nothing. That's in the physical world, which is so, I'm going to say, just speak as a human being, it's a joke to me. Anything, space flight, bodies, frogs, cooking, dinner time, the morning, the evening, the stars, they do not exist to a spiritual person. Ask anyone who's deeply spiritual in your life what their perception of reality is. And the fact is that they're never truly asked. They'll ask for like a 5-word answer to a question, but they won't ask and sit and receive the teaching. It doesn't happen. No one ever listens to anyone. I'm completely spiritual. No one ever listens. I have to force the issue from time to time, and I'll do it with people that I love and appreciate and care for. Because I love and appreciate and care for all the spiritual people that I meet. And they're few and far between, which doesn't matter because the whole thing is an illusion. Let go of it. And not just let go of it in perception, know that God will be with you. And once you start this trek, it's like when I was with my buddy John in Nepal and watching Everest or walking through it, we didn't care because he was completely enlightened, I'm enlightened. We got lost in the snow, we didn't care. Because of the thousands and millions of treks all over Tibetan, and they were, for thousands of years. This didn't start last year or in Tibet. It started, it's been there forever. There have always only been 2 people in the world, 2 kinds of people, the spiritual and the material. If we were in caves or hanging on trees, from your animal, from your dog, it's like our dogs are more conscious than any friend we have. And that's not, a doctor will say, well, it's their sense of smell. No, it's not their sense of smell, it's their godness. They see and feel everything as I see and feel everything all the time. So the whole idea of manhood in the world is a lie. It's part of the illusion. Take all this home with you tonight and build on it. Never let it go. And the first point of it is that which we call God will be with you for the rest of your time here, which won't be long. I swear on everything holy, it won't be long. We're taking back the streets. It's our neighborhood we're fighting for, our family, our mother. We don't want to see our mother suffer anymore. I don't care if they're going to be born again. I don't care. This is over. This is the problem. Believing there is a world. How can you believe in God and the world at the same time? That's the religious sentiment, but it's not God. It's the opposite. It's a step away from the garbage. You are a spiritual presence. When you get really quiet and lose interest in the world, you'll be really quiet and lose interest in the world. And you'll wake up one morning in the very near future. You'll find God himself looking out from your eyes. I've had this since I was born. Before I was born. I've never not had this. And I'm tired of holding it in. I won't. Doesn't matter what's out there. In the end, God actually is God. You actually are God's presence. You're a holy vehicle, and a kind one, and a wise one. God knows. Let go of the world in your perception. It can't hold on to you. You'll be feeling enormous degrees of presence, of wonder, of greatness about you. You'll find books that you're reading, the author, every book I ever read, the author talks to me. The great people I've known in history, or the great saints like Krishnamurti, they talk to me. They didn't die. No one ever died. My mom and dad are with me always. I know my teacher I've known forever. When I first saw him here, saw a spiritual being. My buddy Tim, the first time I saw him was in the locker room of our old gym before we got this one. And I started talking about stuff, and it was like, because I felt his goodness. Gerber, my buddy doing this video right now, he's a spiritual genius, and all he does is build people up 24 hours a day in a way to make you cry. And if you want to, and also if he hits you, make him cry. His arms are bigger than my chest. But that's what he wants to do, is to build other people up. He gives himself away all day, and everyone loves him. And he makes nothing of himself. It's like in the Bible about Jesus said he made no reputation of himself. He was, in other words, he was just a kind, gentle person. You wouldn't know who he is. No one knows who we are, and I don't care anymore. But my voice will be known. It'll be the last thing you hear before it's all gone. There is a God. You are God's very presence. There's nothing wrong with you. The world is an illusion. You have great powers that will open up within you in the very near future. You don't sit and try to learn to meditate and quiet your mind. That's one of the tricks of the devil's trade. All you do is sit quietly, talk to God, God will talk to you. It could not be more simple. That's it. That's your religion. You have great powers to overcome everything in the world. And it doesn't matter the heavens. If one person does this and wants this to disappear, or 300,000 or millions want to, it'll be gone in a flash, because there is no time, and this is truly simply a bad dream in consciousness. It is a temptation, an illusion. And for me as a spiritual being, there are endless universes of light and glory and godness. It's like an infinite, God-swept universe, and this is so ridiculous to believe in this garbage. Do I have to use the words? You see? But when it's only you and me and 6 other people, it's very difficult. So let's do like that group of religious turned spiritual people in 1608 in England. and then they eventually became the Pilgrims, but we don't have to fight the world for it. We don't have to walk anywhere. We don't have to go away. They will go away on our watch. Let yourself be taught of God directly. Do all your own thinking. And as soon as you start this process, everything being said right now, you'll know you've been going this direction anyway. It's just we have to wake each other up, stand tall with each other by sitting quietly. It's the old Buddhist statement my friend John Buxbasin, the great Zen master from Los Angeles, he had written on his wall when we went to university together, a quote from one of the Zen teachers who said, "Thousands of monks on hilltops everywhere, the wind blows through our mind." We're a presence. It's not you still are you, but we're somehow one presence. It's quite a wonderful thing. You give nothing up. It's a very powerful place. You identify with infinity. And the meek shall inherit the earth. Meekness is just being in love with the dawn, petting a kitten, kissing your mom's forehead on the way out the door. It's everything good and dear and precious. Those moments when you have a first kiss. God is not a solver of riddles. When you want to find God, you'll see him playing with Pedro's children or Gerber's clients. It's just when we transmute this world by loving one another in a spiritual sense, knowing what that is. There's no gamesmanship and have this relationship emotional with this man or woman or person. It's transcendent of that. You want and need nothing from it, but you appreciate it with a very dear and precious sentiment. And that's all that's ever required. Beyond that, the mistakes happen. Maintain that childhood innocence. My teacher who trains fighters has it. And all the aggravations of the world are upon him. And each of us in this room. I cannot imagine Tim's job. He's been a law enforcement for 40 years, so can you imagine going to something and being late and there's all the stuff has already happened and you feel responsible because you're the Lone Ranger. You get there and you could prevent it. Imagine doing that every day of your life. Or any responsible job. You can be a surgeon and put everything into it for hours, and at the end the person passes, the patient passes, and you're like, but you have to be totally conscious until that moment, don't you? And then you have to walk away from that and take care of the next patient. And you, my dear friend, are now officially a doctor of the soul. Use your gift wisely. Believe in yourself. Know who you are. Accept no false gods. And the gods are the temptation of anything in the world having power over you. I've done this in every conceivable condition. Not because I wanted, but God put me through it for 50 years when I thought I'd do this when I was 20. To be very frank, but I had to see everything come at me from every direction. So I'm not saying bring it on, it's already passed in my mind. I just want a few of my friends and fellows to step up to the bus and let's get out of town. No, let's stay. Let's put them on the bus. How about it, boys and girls? Time we take back the world that never was. This is heaven. We're going to throw them out. You and I. by believing in God, by believing in you. And the meek shall inherit the heavens. Everything is yours. Everything is God. God bless your holy orders. Your gifts will dispel the madness of this world. When it starts happening early on, everything that was just said will make sense. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Gerber.